Welcome to Absolute Trust Talk with your host, Kirsten Howe. Absolute Trust Talk brings you tips, tools, advice, and interviews to help you build a reliable knowledge base on estate planning, business, and finance to start preparing for your future today.
Hello, and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. This is our podcast here at Absolute Trust Council. I'm Kirsten Howe, and Madison Gunn is here with me today. Madison, what are we going to be talking about today?
We're here to talk about how to reduce family fighting after you pass away.
Excellent. Yeah. And by the way, Madison is kind of in charge of the after death work that we do with our clients. So she sees a lot of the conflicts that happen in families when a parent has died. We don't do litigation. So if a conflict escalates to that point, we have to refer it to one of our colleagues, but we do still see the conflict happening, not all the time, but it happens. So this is a good topic. So, okay, Madison, what do we want to talk about first?
Well, the first thing is, obviously you want to treat your kids equally, but you don't have to. I mean, we understand that every family is different. They have their own, we don't want to say issues, but issues. So everybody has their own unique situations. So you can do what you want. But obviously, if you don't treat your children equally, that is usually the number one reason why people contest a trust or an estate plan.
Right. So. But just to really reiterate what Madison said, you should do what you want. Yes. And if that means not treating your children equally, that is totally fine. That is just a situation that tends to result in conflict. Okay, so assuming we have a family where all of that is taken care of, the children are being treated equally, what else can we do?
Yeah, so the big thing is, everybody gets along until they don't. So all the things that you can kind of do to ensure that they still get along are the things that you can do in your estate plan. So the first one is usually a good idea might be to have a neutral third party as your trustee. So a private professional fiduciary as your trustee, which is a whole category of professional trustee in California. So they're licensed fiduciaries that come in and administer the trust.
Yeah, there are a number of different ways you can go with that. You can name a bank, a trust department, a corporate trustee, or you can name a licensed private professional fiduciary. The thing that's nice about that is that they don't have any history. They don't have any family emotional things happening in the background. Whereas if you select one of your children, you don't necessarily know what's going on when you're not around. You don't know what their relationships really are like. And you really don't know who's holding a grudge about what and what childhood incident had a lasting impact on whom. When you bring in a neutral third party, they don't have any of that history. They're just going to get the job done.
And it really just goes a lot smoother with a professional who knows what they're doing. They call us a lot less, which results in a lot less legal fees to the trust, which means the other kids are a lot less irritated with the cost because it's a lot smaller. So even though the fiduciaries might charge for their time, they're a lot less expensive than the attorney's fees that a child might rack up having to call all the time.
That's exactly right. And this is their job. It's what they do all day from 9 to 5 or 9 to 8 or whatever their hours are. They're doing it. So things tend to happen a lot more quickly as opposed to your child who's has a job, has kids, has a soccer team, all the things. Conflict can be averted when things start happening and people start getting their money instead of waiting a year or 2 years for the trustee to start finishing up their job. Good point. And, naming a family member can be problematic. We've talked about very recently a case where immediately on the death, there was litigation because of the choice of the trustee.
Yep. On the death of Lisa Marie Presley, her daughter, Riley Keough, and her mom immediately went at each other trying to be trustee of her trust. Yeah. And Priscilla, they immediately went at each other. And it's like, who wants that job? I mean, they want to be paid for the job. I understand that. People usually that's what they want.
And I think it's also about control. A lot of times, I want to be the one in control. I don't want to be sitting there waiting and watching and hoping that it gets done. And I was reading about Jerry Garcia, and I didn't know this, but I just recently read this, that on his death, he had named his third wife as his trustee. And she promptly, apparently, based on what I read, turned around and terminated the spousal support for the second wife. So that's a clear example of family members with history and emotion rearing its ugly head and getting in the way of doing the job.
It gets very complicated. Having a fiduciary involved as a neutral third party makes it just a lot smoother. At least if the siblings are annoyed with the fiduciary, they all band together. And so they're a unified front. Just to be clear, they get to be involved in decision making. It's not like the fiduciary steps in and decides who, they clean the house out. They still involve the kids. They're not in there just making all decisions on their own. They still involve the children. So it's not like the kids don't know what's going on. Right. It's just that the fiduciary's in there doing the work.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The beneficiaries are always entitled to know what's going on. So that is not a concern with a third party. What other little nuggets of wisdom do you have to help families avoid conflict after the parents have passed away?
Yeah. The biggest bane that I see is the house, the family home, particularly if it's the home that everyone was raised in. So my favorite thing and what I like to encourage, I don't like tell people what to do in their estate planning, but I encourage it if they're worried about it, is to require that the house be sold in their estate plan. In fact, I had this yesterday. If they're worried or they know that one daughter or one child is going to want the house, I will say, we'll give them the first option to buy it. They have to figure it out at that point. But otherwise, it's got to be sold. And it's got to be sold on the open market, not any of this pocket listing, backroom dealing, wheeling and dealing with their siblings, because someone's going to get the raw end of a deal. And then there's going to be ongoing grudges. Yeah. So a lot of children fight over your stuff. And it's not even the value of it. And the funny thing is like my generation's going to fight over who doesn't want it. And Kirsten's generation is going to fight over who does want it. And then going forward, everyone else is going to burn it down. Gen Z is going to burn it down. But, they're spending money, thousands and thousands of dollars over who wants it. And they're not fighting over grandma's $30,000 ring. They're fighting over the Precious Moments collection or the vinyl collection or things like that, things that have sentimental value, sure, but they're not worth anything. So I strongly suggest either having a plan, deciding who gets what, talking about it with your kids in advance and writing it down, who gets what, or just putting a plan in place for your trustee. It's a round robin. Each kid gets a schoolyard pick around, what they get to pick out of the house and doing it that way. Something, at least a plan.
Yeah. Make it as
fair,
objective and straightforward as you can. And I would also say, make sure that if this is appropriate, the trustee is authorized to donate or throw away anything that people don't pick.
Yeah, no one wants 50-year-old linens.
You don't have to have a garage sale. You don't have to have an estate sale. The trustee should be free to do what is in the best interests of the trust as a whole. You're going to spend $5,000 having a garage sale that nets $450. That makes no sense. So just be clear about that kind of thing.
And it doesn't take much to do that in your estate plan. It doesn't not take hardly anything to do that in your estate plan.
No. So these are the things that we see the most conflict over: the real estate, the tangible possessions, and the trustee. Those are probably the most common conflicts that we see among the siblings. And so just putting a little more thought into it ahead of time can go a long way. Any others?
That is it. I think those are the big three.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Madison. This has been very fun, hopefully illuminating for our audience. And we are so glad that you were able to be with us today. And we look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.
This podcast is not meant to take the place of legal advice from an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you do have a legal question or issue, please consult with an attorney.